Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices is made possible in part by Allstate and CIBC.
Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Univision Chicago Primera Hora, which airs every weekday morning at 5 and 6. Thank you for joining us this holiday weekend. On the show tonight, as the United States celebrates its 245th Independence Day, we talk with local Latino Chicagoans about what patriotism means to them. What's behind Chicago's vaccination rate disparity and the latest on the Delta variant in the city. A throwback to honor the legacy of restaurant pioneer Camerino Gonzalez Valle, who died this week at age 81.
Thinking about 200 years of Latin American independence, what has changed, what hasn't.
And the new exhibit at the Newberry Library looks at the ties between the revolutionary histories of the U.S. and countries across Latin America. First off tonight, this week, Chicago welcomed 175 new Americans as they took the oath of allegiance to the United States at Wrigley Field. Here's a moment when they become citizens.
By the authority vested in this court, I hereby declare you to be citizens of the United States of America. Congratulations.
But for many Latinos, both American-born and immigrants, feelings of pride and patriotism for the United States are complicated by history, racial injustice, and cultural erasure, leading to questions of what it truly means to be an American patriot. Joining us with more are ANYINÉ GALVÁN-RODRÍGUEZ, educator and Afro-Latina blogger, Marcos Torres, U.S. Army veteran and commander of the American Legion Post 939, and Moises Hernandez, immigration attorney and vice president of the board of directors of Latinos Progresando. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. I want to start with you, Moises. You're an immigration attorney and yourself an immigrant to the U.S. What do you hear from the people you work with about their feelings of patriotism for the U.S.?
First, I think many of the people I've encountered, they distinguish between policies or rhetoric that may be anti-immigrant or negative from the ideals of this country. It's espoused foundational ideals of opportunity for all, of freedom, of all of us being equal under the law. So I think in that way, immigrants kind of rejuvenate and call this country to live up to those foundational ideals. And I think people are smart. People distinguish bad behavior from ideals. So I think that many of the people that I talk to don't see that as a contradiction. They love this country, they're grateful to this country, and they can distinguish that from some of the negative noise, which has been very loud in recent years, right?
ANYINÉ, you're also an immigrant to the U.S. Would you say that your experience makes your relationship with the idea of American patriotism different from those who were born here?
I think so. I think, to me, patriotism is having respect and appreciation to the land you call home. And home for me is different spaces. It's Dominican Republic because I was born there. It's Puerto Rico. I was raised there till I was 9, and then I came to Chicago. So I really respect and appreciate all those different countries for the beauty that they have in their history, as well as the flaws that they have in their history.
Marcos, you're a Chicago native and U.S. Army veteran. What does patriotism mean to you?
Patriotism to me means not only to have love for one's country, but also the innate desire to fight and defend it, whether it be civically or on a national level, whether it be serving the military, things of that nature. If you are a patriot, you not only love your country, but you want to serve your country and uphold your country's values.
ANYINÉ, going back to you, as an educator, do you think it's important to foster feelings of patriotism in our children?
I think that is definitely important. I think part of fostering patriotism within the classroom is also sharing, again, the history of the country, the good and the bad, right? And giving the opportunity for students to be able to develop that identity as Americans and see the beauty of how we can continue to evolve as a country, to improve it, to be inclusive and build a community so that we all feel like we are part of this landscape we call America, United States of America.
Moises, in Chicago, we have many neighborhoods and celebrations of Latino cultures like Mexican Independence Day and Puerto Rican Day parades. Do you think that those celebrations show that immigrants don't think of themselves as Americans first?
No, not at all. I think the history of this country has always been new groups arriving, committing, and establishing deep roots in this country, but being very proud and jealous of their cultural traditions, their food, their language, their stories. And I think that's part and parcel of the American experience. I think the idea that love of one's cultural heritage, of the places one comes from, is somehow diminishes your capacity to love the United States is frankly nonsense. That has always been, and that same suspicion or accusation has been leveled against people who've come to this country of Jewish descent, Irish Catholics, every Mediterranean Europeans. So I don't think that holds any water as an argument. People can love their culture and show their affection for the places they come from and those traditions and language, and doesn't diminish the immigrants' obligations or love of this country. Look at the rates at which immigrants enroll in the military, in which they buy homes, in which they establish businesses in this country. So I don't think those are at all in conflict in any way. We are, and going to what was said earlier, and our education, right, I think it teaches us to appreciate both of those realities.
Marcos, you chartered a new American Legion post for Latino veterans, which we covered actually here on Latino Voices last month, because you felt like you didn't see patriotism in your community. Do you think it's important for Latino Americans to feel patriotic?
I think it's extremely important because given, as was spoken of Moises, the different political climates that have been in our country, given what happened after Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, it's extremely important that we feel patriotic because we must take ownership, because this is our home, this is our country, este es mi país. And I think that it's important that we also let the rest of the country know that, hey, we are here, and este es el país de nosotros. This is our country.
Thank you for that. ANYINÉ, do you think schools should teach children about the history of race and racism in America's history?
Absolutely. I think that that's how you grow. Patriotism is part of this relationship. It's kind of like a relationship in the sense that you love and you care, but you also have to appreciate the flaws of that relationship so that you could have that relationship evolve, right? So within the classroom, there are many ways that definitely we could have our students appreciate the country that we have and the opportunities that it provides for those that live here, but also learn from the mistakes that we've made as a country in the past, right? And how do we teach our children to do better so that they don't make the same mistakes that people in the past have made? Right? Because the whole purpose of a community is to move the community forward, right? To move our society forward, to move this country forward. So part of that is also sharing and helping students understand the mistakes or the flaws that our history has, right, but also the beauty.
What do you celebrate the most about this country, ANYINÉ?
For me, the opportunities. I think my mother came here to give us a better opportunity to achieve, to take the liberty of being able to become the best person that you can be, the potential that you may be able to reach in a space where you have these liberties. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that this country has the Constitution that really allows for us to move forward and to rewrite it and be able to do it in a way that is better for all.
Thank you. I want to close with also the two of you answering the same question. What do you celebrate the most about this country? I'll start with you, Marcos.
I would have to agree with ANYINÉ, the opportunity. My father came from Puerto Rico in 1966, not having a lot of education, but he was able to work for CTA for 33 years. And through that, he was able to give me, my older brother, my mom, an amazing life, and a life that really wouldn't have been possible for him had he stayed on the island, because those opportunities just weren't there. So in America, I believe that I love to celebrate the opportunity and the fact that you can dream.
Thank you for that. And I want to close, and I'll leave you with the last question, last 30 seconds.
Certainly opportunity as well, but I think especially right now where we see democracies under attack around the world, that a country exists based on the idea that power comes from the people governed, not from a king, not from a divine right, that the authority to govern comes from the people who are governed, and that all those people are equal under the law. I think those principles are eternal, and I love this country for that. And I think the world looks to us to keep improving and admires that capacity to be self-critical and those values. But the principles, I think, that our Constitution lays out, it's one of the things I certainly love most about this country.
Let's celebrate that. Happy 4th of July to the three of you, and thank you for joining us this evening. ANYINÉ Galván-RODRÍGUEZ, Marcos Torres, and Moises Hernández. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you.
And join Brandon Friedman tomorrow evening on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, for a look at how some in the Black community view their own patriotism. Up next, what's behind Chicago's COVID vaccine disparity? Stay with us for more. We are only a day away from the 4th of July COVID vaccination goal of 70% set by President Joe Biden. And although the country is not reaching this goal nationally, vaccination rates in Chicago overall are on the rise, with the CDC reporting more than 70% of Cook County adults having received at least one dose. But a closer look shows unequal rates depending on what neighborhood you live in. A recent Southside Weekly report shows the vaccine disparity widening between wealthier parts of the city and majority Black and brown neighborhoods on the south and west sides, the target areas of a city vaccine initiative called Protect Chicago Plus. Health officials continue to urge the public to get vaccinated, especially as people will be heading back indoors during the fall and winter months. Joining us to provide their perspectives are Ricardo CIFUENTES, Vice President of External Affairs of Esperanza Health Centers, and Doctora Juanita Mora of Chicago Allergy Center. Thank you, both of you, for joining us, and I want to start with you, Ricardo. What are we seeing when it comes to vaccination rates between Chicago zip codes, this disparity between some south and west side neighborhoods and more wealthier areas of the city?
Yeah, well, absolutely, and thank you again for having me. I think it's not surprising. It's disappointing, but it's nothing that surprises us. I mean, from the outset, we knew that inequity was going to be an issue, starting with healthcare workers back in January and February, an industry that is primarily non-Hispanic white. That was going to set the tone for the kind of inequities that we see today. I think we are seeing a decrease. Everyone around the city is certainly seeing a decrease in demand, but it's been particularly pronounced on the southwest side areas that we serve, and that's been something that's extremely worrisome to us. I think those inequities are due to a number of circumstances, but certainly access to technology, lack of flexibility in the workplace, not having established care, perhaps, as they may have in other neighborhoods. These are all issues that are exacerbating the inequity and leading to the differences in numbers we're seeing now.
Dr. Mora, the Project Chicago Plus plan launched at the start of the year was intended to target the most affected communities with the COVID vaccine, mostly Black and brown neighborhoods on the side and west side. Did we fall short of this?
Well, I think inevitably we did somewhat fall short, Alex. We're still all trying to get into these Black and Brown communities and spread the word on the importance of getting vaccinated, especially when we look at this pandemic and how hard hit these communities were. And there's a lot of mistrust within them. And now there's a big push through using some of the political leaders who are well respected in these communities, such as Chuy Garcia in the Latino community and Jesse Jackson in the actual Black community as well too, to go into sites and really promote the vaccinations and the safety, the effectiveness, and also that they save lives.
Ricardo, what do you think is driving this widening disparity between vaccination rates?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think the fact that, first we need the trusted messengers to deliver the message of the need for vaccination, and what Dr. Mora just mentioned, I think is going to be crucial in that regard. Going door to door, having personal conversations with people so they see the real need for vaccination is going to be really critical. But let's face it, I mean, some of our communities are more connected than others. So these disparities have existed long before COVID arrived, and I think we're now starting to see the raw underbelly of that disparity, right? People, essential workers who don't have the same kind of flexibility with time as people in other neighborhoods may have, to take that time off to go and get vaccinated. I think that's something that we're seeing. And like I mentioned before, I think having established care prior to the pandemic is something that's really important. We serve a community where they're primarily low income, may not have established care previously. And so those dynamics are going to continue now, whereas in other neighborhoods, people who may have been connected to care are getting more access to the vaccine.
Ricardo, is hesitancy is still a challenge?
Hesitancy is still a challenge. I think before saying that the remainder of people who haven't gotten vaccinated are hesitant, I would say for some people it's just inconvenient. And I know it sounds a little strange to say, we're in the middle of a pandemic with life-altering consequences. But I think for people who juggle multiple jobs, maybe they can't afford to take off, they have kids, they have all these responsibilities, it may just be hard to fit it in. And I think we need to be cognizant that access is not just about having supply of vaccine in the neighborhood, but making sure that people have the time to get it when it's convenient to them.
Dr. Mora, regarding the vaccine, what are you hearing at the clinics and practices from your patients?
Well, I think a lot of them, there's still, just like Ricardo said, a lot of hesitancy and misinformation. And I know you and I, Alex, work a lot in answering a lot of people's questions and spreading good information through Univision, but we still have so much more work to do.
Right.
So as volunteer spokesperson for the American Lung Association, and, as a physician who has seen COVID-19 in the Latino community all throughout, I think the best thing to do is really provide great information for them. And a place where they can find it is at lung.org. We have a vaccine tracker where they can find all the information in English and Spanish, Alex, on, every one of the vaccines, the science behind them, side effect profiles, why they should think about getting vaccinated, and then where to find a vaccine as well, too, so they can even find it on the weekends.
Doctor, we are very limited on time, but I just want to touch on the Delta variant. We have about 30 seconds. If you can just give us a broad, visual image of what this is going to look like in the future months.
Okay, we need everyone to get vaccinated, Alex, because this Delta variant is no joke. It's in India. It's the one that's caused all the devastation, 50% more contagious, only 33% effective with one Pfizer vaccine against protection against it. When we do two, it's up to 88%. We need everyone vaccinated because it's going to be the tool to get us all out of this pandemic. Once we get indoors, we all face danger again. And we cannot let this virus mutate more and cause more damage than it's already done.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank both of you, Ricardo CIFUENTES and Dr. Juanita Mora, for joining us today. Excellent information. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, Latin America and the age of the revolution at the Newberry Library. So stay with us. Americans celebrating the 4th of July this weekend might be surprised to learn that our country's battle for independence was deeply intertwined with Latin America's struggles against colonialism. A new exhibit at the Newberry Library, Viva la Libertad, Latin America and the Age of Revolutions, uses maps, manuscripts, and rare books to illustrate the trials and triumphs of countries from Mexico to Chile as they fought for their own independence. The exhibit's curator gave Chicago Tonight Latino Voices a tour.
This exhibit is Viva la Libertad, Latin America and the Age of Revolutions, and the time period when the Latin American nations from Mexico all the way down to Chile won their independence in the 1800s through the 1820s. We realized that 2021 was going to be the 200th anniversary of a number of countries winning their independence, declaring their independence, and so the timing seemed right to put together the exhibition, and thinking about the connection to the present day, thinking about 200 years of Latin American independence, what has changed, what hasn't, what issues are we still talking about. So this is the Codex Zempoala, which is a Techaloyan document, village land book, essentially, where indigenous people in central Mexico are asserting their rights to the land they've lived in Zempoala, for hundreds of years. It's a mix of the Nahuatl language, the indigenous Nahuatl language, which was the language of the Aztec Empire, mixed with illustrations sort of in Spanish style and some in a more sort of Nahua style. They're documenting it for Spanish administrators, specifically saying, you know, we have autonomy on this land, we have sovereignty on this land. Here is the land that we know, and here is how we were documenting. It's our land, it's not Spanish administrators to take. One of the things we're pointing out in this exhibit is all of these independence struggles happening around this time period. Some of them, you know, sparked, provoked by that United States successful revolution and winning of independence. This modest-looking book is actually quite exciting. This is a book that translates essentially to Necessary Ideas for the Independent American Peoples Who Want to Be Free. It is a compilation of the U.S. founding documents and writings by people like Thomas Paine and John Adams, compiled by an Ecuadorian patriot named Vicente Rocafuerte. It's published in Spanish, probably intended to be smuggled into Latin America or taken into Latin American countries that had already won their independence. But it was easier to print it in Philadelphia and then work it in, thanks to the chaos of the Wars of Independence. This is one of the most impressive, famous, and largest maps of South America ever produced. It's typically referred to as the Cruz Cano map after its cartographer, Juan de la Cruz Cano y Olmedilla. It was created in 1775. It was commissioned by the Spanish Crown, the Spanish administration, to understand their lands in South America, the lands that they claimed rights to as colonies of Spain. This is a book called, essentially it translates to Spells and Incantations, Songs of Mayan Women. It's a book where Mayan women have essentially controlled the whole process of bookmaking for the first time in probably about 5 centuries. The Codex Zempoala and this book form nice bookends for the exhibit, thinking about indigenous people's place in these freedom struggles. That continues to the present day, indigenous people asserting their sovereignty to the land, but also to their stories and the right to tell their stories in the way that they see fit.
If you would like to see it, the Viva la Libertad exhibition runs at the Newberry Library through July 24th. This week, Camerino Gonzalez Valle, founder of the pioneering Chicago restaurant chain Taqueria Los Comales, died at age 81. Gonzalez came to the U.S. from Mexico as a teenager and worked as a bracero in California before moving to Chicago. He founded the first Los Comales in La Villita in 1973, where his Mexico City-style tacos became a hit. In tonight's Throwback, we'll see Gonzalez Valle's daughter, Christina, talking about tacos and her dad at the flagship Little Village location on the pilot of WTTW's restaurant review show, Check Please, in 2001.
My dad started the business. He started about 29 years ago. He started with Mexico City-style tacos with a miniature-sized tortilla, and it was something that immigrants from Mexico really enjoyed coming here and seeing a little bit of their hometown back in Chicago. So it just kind of grew from there. Thankfully, we've got all this business now because of good food. A lot of people have gone to other taco restaurants and they've gotten a lot of the hard shell corn tortilla. So a lot of times they're not willing to try the soft shell tortilla, the corn tortilla, and to try, instead of ground beef, the fresh chopped beef. That's a lot better. And then using different condiments, maybe something they're not afraid to try. Cilantro, onions, and a little bit of hot sauce. Not something really hot, but something just to complement the meat and the flavor. And usually a lot of times we call them converters. We usually convert them over to the traditional style taco with the traditional condiments on it. As long as you make your customer feel very comfortable, feel like he's at home, and the people that are serving him are his relatives, I think that's really, really important for a restaurant business and with your customer, if you treat them that way and if the food's good.
Very good, without a doubt. Well, that's our show for this Saturday night. Be sure to check our website, wttw.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And join Brandis Friedman tomorrow night for Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Don't forget also to tune in to Primera Hora on Univision Chicago every weekday morning. I'll be waiting for you, and I'll see you here next week. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Thank you for sharing part of your holiday weekend with us. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm named on the 2021 expertise list of the best personal injury attorneys in Chicago.